Hi everybody! Thanks for tuning in to another session of Barbie Rocks. Now today I wanted to do a little tutorial or sort of a doll review on the comparison of body types. We're looking at Monster High dolls and all the different varieties of body types in terms of comparison with none other than the vintage dolls from the 1960s. So I pulled up a couple of dolls to show you what dolls look like from the 1960s. As you can see, I'm just going to show you the bodies. And then I wanted to do a comparison on Disney dolls. The comparison in terms of their body types and their faces as compared to Monster High, and then a comparison with the EVERAFTER High dolls. Now there's quite a bit of difference. First of all, what I notice is there are similarities and there are differences. But if we look at Monster High, they come in different types of colors. Now I'm just going to go through and show you. Look at the colors. Sometimes you'll get a blue. Now, like if we look at this doll here, which is your Caddy Noir doll, right here. Now she's all black. Then if we look, go ahead and check out the other dolls. Sometimes you get dolls that are in blue. And look at the body. Now look at the skin colors of Torley. Torley is more of a yellowish orange color, sort of like a tiger. Then if we look at Dracula's body, she's more of a light pink. Now if we compare her with Frankenstein, now let's just look at her body. Now her body is more of a gray. She's more of a gray, and she's got all these little sort of like tattoos of chain going around her body. Now if we look at Mattel doesn't have that. The vintage dolls from Mattel Company, they have solid straight bodies, and some of the torsos, like these ones here, the ponytail Barbies, this one is a heavy torso and it's a solid body. She smells like crayon, so she's a lot heavier, and of course a lot in weight. She's much heavier than your Monster High dolls. Like these dolls are relatively lightweight if I lift them. Now if we look at the vintage dolls from the 1960s, comparison with Mattel, these dolls are fairly heavy. They have quite a solid weight to them. So there are a little bit of differences, but if we look at the bubble cuts, they're a lot lighter weight in body. Seems like they have a hollow torso. If you sort of tap on it, you can feel the hollow torso. But if we look at the Monster High dolls, they actually have lightweight bodies and sort of a hollowness to them. So their bodies aren't completely solid. What I also notice is, if we look at the bodies, they have a different shape. As you can see, it's more of a curvature, a real skinny waistline here in the bust area. And then we look at the derriere, and it's quite formed, and then the articulations to the knee joints, they have articulations in which they have a mechanism to bend. I'll try to show you that closely in camera. So I hope you can see that. So can you see the articulations, how the joints bend? But if we compare it to the Mattel had a different way of making their dolls in which they have a solid kind of rubber, and they actually bend with solid 3 clicks. See, I'm just going to show you. There you go. So, and they don't have the articulations like the Monster High. See, you can actually visually see the articulations. So I don't know if you find that attractive or not, or you prefer dolls that have the solid articulations where you don't see the bendability in terms of how the mechanics work in the knee joints. And the other thing I want to take note of is if we look at the Monster High wrist, Let's just try to get this focused for you. Now if we look at the elbows, you can also see the articulation to it. As I'm just going to show you. See how it bends? You can see that, and then you can see the articulations to the wrist. How that sort of bends back and forth. And of course the knee joints. But if we look at Mattel didn't have the articulations. They didn't have the articulations at the wrist, as I can show you right here. There's no articulations. So it's sort of like a solid, it's just sort of a solid wrist with no articulation. So those are some of the primary differences between Monster High dolls. But, you know, the thing about it is these were produced by Mattel, as these were also produced by Mattel. But the other thing here, if we look comparison to Disney dolls, now their bodies are a little bit different. They're sort of more similar to Mattel Company because the dolls are very straightforward. Now she's got more of a, she has a solid, she has more of a solid body, lightweight, and the ability to bend and flex with 3 joint articulations at the knees. So I would say that the Disney dolls are more in comparison with the Mattel dolls. And if we look here, these dolls here, which are more current and more recent, because these were, remember, these are from the 1960s. We're looking at dolls from 1960s, then we're looking at dolls from 2016, 2017, 18, and then we got dolls, which are Disney's, which are more contemporary dolls. But the bodies are quite similar to the Mattel dolls. But if I were to compare it with the EVERAFTER High dolls, I would say the EVERAFTER High dolls have the articulations at the knees as well. Then they also have the articulations at the arm joints and the wrist joints. So here's one, here's an EVERAFTER High doll, and I'm showing you the joints to her knees. You can see that. And her body is quite slender at the waist. But as we look at Monster High, it has a curvature on the back, unlike the curvature here, which is not as prominent. So this is EVERAFTER High, and these are Monster High dolls. And the body, as I've just shown you, are a little bit different. So, and the other thing about Monster High is we get the various skin colors. Comes in blue, comes in more of pink shade, light pink. It comes in sort of a greenish shade, and then you get an ivory white shade. We've got Torley, we've got Claudine Wolf, and she's more of a darker brown. Frankenstein, which is more of a grayish color. So those are the different colors in shades of Monster High. So we can see that in variety and color would be Monster High would have more of variety and creativity in colors and designs. Mattel has creativity too in design, but they're more, to me, straightforward dolls with very slender bodies, 12-inch dolls. Some were twist and turn bodies, some were straight solid bodies. And if we look at Disney dolls, they sort of rank similar to Mattel dolls because they have like the straight bodies, twists and turns, lightweight, no articulations at the elbow joints or at the wrist joints. But they have the 3 clicks which you can bend at the knees like Barbie. Well, of course, the earlier Barbies, like the Bubble Cuts, did not have the ability to bend. These were the earlier dolls, so if you're into the earlier dolls, which are much harder to find and harder to get, you would be looking at these 1960 vintage dolls. These ones are quite classic and very hard to find. The other thing I want to take note of is, which I find interesting, is we look at Disney dolls. Their faces are, to me, they have a more cartoonish face. Look at the eyes. And here we got Snow White. Of course you got Snow White and you got Cinderella. If you look at the faces. And here we got Jasmine, if you look at the face. It's got more of a cartoonish look. Can we see that? And here's we got Mulan, and look at the face. To me, it's more of a cartoonish face. Now, if we compare the faces to Mattel, Mattel always had a certain more of a daintier face, more petite, smaller chin, and now, if we compare it to the Monster High dolls, their faces' eyes are fairly big, much larger lips, and let's look at the EVERAFTER High. Their lips are quite similar to Monster High, and their eyes are fairly big, more slanted. And then we look at Monster High faces. So you can see sort of a difference in comparison to the Mattel dolls. Now if we look at the Mattel doll faces, they're more slender. The Japanese made it much smaller. Smaller lips. Here we've got Fashion Queen. I put her over on this side, but here's the Fashion Queen in bubble cuts. And of course your PJ Barbie here. Their faces are much smaller. Try to get a nice view for you. The faces are much smaller as compared to Disney, which is much larger. And then if we were to compare a Monster High doll face, we can see how big the Monster High doll faces are in compared to Mattel. So Mattel, this is much larger. And here we got, let's just try to show you the comparison of a Monster High doll, a Barbie doll, and a Disney doll face. And then let's look at the EVERAFTER High face. So let's take a great look at this. So here I've got an EVERAFTER High doll face compared to Monster High doll face, which is quite similar. It's that EVERAFTER High has more of a heart-shaped face. It's wider at the cheeks, and Mattel dolls were much, much more smaller. The Japanese had a thing with, in terms of design and daintiness and elegance and petite. So here it is, it's small, very small chin, small little like a button nose, and Mattel has more of a wider face. Disney dolls are much wider chin, but much similar. So I would say Disney and Mattel are quite similar. Monster High and EVERAFTER are quite similar. So that is my little tutorial and references in comparison to dolls that you would find. Again, let's look at our Monster High bodies. So there we go. So those are the different colors of Monster High. You've got your blue, you've got twirly, you've got the purple bodies, light pink colors, white, brown colors. That's your Monster High. And then of course I showed you Disney, which have sort of cartoonish faces, but they are 12 inches in height, similar, and we've got dolls that are similar. Cinderella. And here we have the dolls, of course, that I was showing you, which is the vintage Barbie doll line. And now those dolls, as I've said before, are more of your straightforward 12-inch doll bodies. And they're very straightforward, and the way that the Japanese designed it was for elegance. So for those of you who are doll lovers, trying to begin a new collection, and looking at the various doll types, I've just done a little tutorial reference for you. So hope you enjoy this. And I hope you have a wonderful day from Barbie Rocks. And remember always to live your life to the fullest. Each day that you have is so special, and live it to the fullest. So tuning out from Barbie Rocks.